Hey everyone, this is Michael again and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the Allstate Arena in Chicago. And my god, this show was absolutely fucking boring tonight. This show was terrible as always, but this show was sleep-inducing. At points in the show tonight, I was almost going to fucking fall asleep. This show dragged tonight. And WWE, this was a sold-out show in Chicago, as they claim, and WWE put that whole entire Chicago crowd to sleep. There was chants of Punk, there was CM Punk chants, there was chants of "We want Bray Wyatt." Yeah, there was chants of "We want Wyatt." A guy that WWE released on Saturday, and the crowd was chanting "We want Bray Wyatt." That shows that WWE made a huge mistake releasing Bray Wyatt. Like I said, this show was absolutely fucking boring tonight. What do we get on the show tonight? We had a 2-on-1 handicap match. Veer and Shanky, Jinder Mahal's goons, versus Drew McIntyre. Really? Lame. We had Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. Another rematch from last week. Mace TV versus Mansoor and Mustafa Ali. And then we had Damian Priest versus John Morrison. Was this like the 6th time that they had this match? And then we had Omos versus Matt Riddle. Right there. You could say who won the match. And then once again from last week, another rematch. Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross. 50-50 booking in that match. We had the stupid Jobber Ninja Turtle 24/7 title on the line. Reginald versus Akira Tozawa. And in the main event, we had a no-holds-barred match. NIKKI A.S.H versus Charlotte Flair. Man, does this sound like a good Monday Night Raw tonight? Awful. Absolutely fucking awful. But before I start the review, if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, I did a DVD VHS haul of things that I got from the Salvation Army. Went back today and got 5 DVDs and 6 VHSs. The VHSs were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, old school VHSs. So definitely check out my haul of that previous video. Definitely check it out if you guys haven't seen it. Also, I got news right here about Ric Flair's release from WWE. Ric Flair ended up asking for his release from WWE. This ain't shocking news to me. So that news ended up coming out today. Ric Flair, I think, in my opinion, he's going to be going to AEW. So that's the little piece of news that was released today. Ric Flair no longer with WWE. But anyways, let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley ended up making his way out along with MVP. So he ended up coming into the ring. Him and MVP ended up coming into the ring. MVP was on the mic. He ended up welcoming Chicago back to Monday Night Raw. And he ended up saying that he knows everyone is excited to see Goldberg. Not me. And the Chicago crowd were booing. MVP ended up saying before Goldberg comes out, the Almighty has asked him to address a few things. MVP ended up bringing up how Goldberg came to the show uninvited 2 weeks ago and challenged Bobby Lashley. But Bobby Lashley did not dignify the challenge with the response. So MVP wanted to say that without question, Goldberg is the greatest of all time and an icon and is able to annihilate any man on any given night. And that he didn't challenge any man. He challenged the Almighty. MVP wanted to say that Goldberg is a gladiator and that he's used to stepping into this Coliseum and squashing any other gladiator. But MVP ended up saying that Bobby Lashley is not a gladiator. He's a kaiju, an unstoppable force, a monster. So I guess somebody who was writing this for MVP is a fan of Pacific Rim. I mean, I liked Pacific Rim. I liked both of the Pacific Rim films, even though the second one not as good as the first, though. But I still liked it. So MVP ended up saying that he is here to prevent a tragedy. Of course, Chicago starts chanting for Goldberg, even though some fans were booing him when MVP ended up saying that everyone's excited to see Goldberg. So MVP ended up saying that if it happens, it won't end well for Goldberg, and it may be the end of Goldberg's career. So MVP ended up asking if Goldberg wants to be remembered as a champion or a casualty. So MVP then ended up asking the fans the same thing, which way they want to remember Goldberg. And then Goldberg ended up coming out. Of course, Chicago starts chanting, Goldberg, Goldberg. And then Goldberg ends up coming out. He's on the stage. The crowd ends up popping for him. Goldberg starts bouncing around the stage. He ends up doing his pyro. So he then comes into the ring. He stops and stares at his son, who is ringside. So Goldberg ended up getting into the ring. And Goldberg ended up saying that he wants to get one thing straight. If anyone should be worried about losing something, it's Bobby Lashley losing the WWE Championship. Goldberg once said that after listening to what MVP had to say, he knows MVP is nothing but scared. And Goldberg was in Bobby Lashley's face. Goldberg ended up saying to Bobby Lashley that, "Oh, you look a little scared." Goldberg ended up saying that he knows what Bobby Lashley's thinking. That Bobby Lashley, is a high-level athlete and a gladiator. So Goldberg ended up saying, a high-level athlete questions himself, and a gladiator shows weakness. And Goldberg starts laughing. Goldberg ended up asking Bobby Lashley if he's up for the challenge, because when Lashley first saw him walk down the ramp, he saw Goldberg as his next victim. Goldberg ended up saying that this isn't his Coliseum. This is Chicago, and the fans here can smell fear a mile away. Goldberg ended up saying that it doesn't matter if he's 35, 45, 105. He will always be him. He will always be Goldberg. Goldberg ended up saying that he lives by the spear, and you, champ, will die by the spear. So Goldberg ended up saying that's why he's him. That's why he's Goldberg. And because he's Goldberg, and at SummerSlam, champ, he was, of course, telling this to Bobby Lashley. He ended up saying that at SummerSlam, champ, you're next. So Goldberg then dropped the mic. He got out of the ring. Lashley was continuing to staring down at Goldberg. Lashley was seated in the ring. MVP then ended up pointing to Goldberg's son, to Bobby Lashley. So Lashley ended up going down to ringside. He ended up having a stare down at Goldberg's son. MVP then backed Bobby Lashley off. And MVP was saying that to Goldberg's son, that Bobby Lashley is going to end his dad's career. So Lashley was back in the ring. MVP was continuing to talk trash to Goldberg's son. Goldberg then came back out and he delivered a huge spear to MVP at ringside. Goldberg's son then ended up popping over the barricade and he ended up heading to the back with his father. Goldberg was talking trash to Bobby Lashley from the stage. and he was threatening to kill Bobby Lashley if he messes with his son. So Bobby Lashley then ended up helping MVP back to his feet, and that was how the segment ended. So, but in this segment, the crowd chants, they were chanting for, we want Bray Wyatt, we want Wyatt, and WWE was like drowning the crowd out, so he wouldn't hear those chants from the crowd. So, but overall, this segment was just meh, in my opinion. So then we saw Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was backstage. He had his sword. He was talking to Sarah Schreiber. And we saw, a replay of Drew McIntyre destroying Shanky with the chair from 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Raw. Total 20 chair shots that Shanky took. And we also saw, the video from last week where McIntyre ended up taking out Veer with the Claymore into the chair. So that was that. And then we had the first match of the night, which was Veer and Shanky versus Drew McIntyre. 2-on-1 handicap match. Veer and Shanky were waiting in the ring with Jinder Mahal. Drew McIntyre ended up coming out next. He had a sword in hand. And Jimmy Smith on commentary, he stated that McIntyre has named his sword Angela after his mother. Really? So, when Drew McIntyre ended up coming out, we had piped in crowd noises, and we heard Michael Cole's voice there, which you could tell that WWE piped in those crowd noises, because, with Michael Cole's voice there, I'm like, that was a big botch on WWE there. But this match, it was a waste of time. This match was such a waste of time. We had Drew McIntyre win the match because we had Shanky end up grabbing McIntyre's foot from the floor to prevent him from hitting the Claymore. Jinder ended up hitting the ring with a chair, and he attacked Drew McIntyre. So there you go. Drew McIntyre ended up winning the match by disqualification. Post-match, Jinder Mahal was working on Drew McIntyre. And then we had Jinder, Veer, and Shanky. They all had chairs. They were staring McIntyre down. So McIntyre ended up getting up. He looked at Jinder, Veer, and Shanky. And he then grabbed his sword. And he brought it into the ring. Drew McIntyre ended up knocking Jinder's chair away with the sword. Jinder ended up retreating out of the ring. McIntyre then ended up dropping Veer with the Glasgow Kiss headbutt. And so Veer ended up retreating out of the ring. McIntyre ended up staring Shanky down. He was pointing the sword at Shanky. So Shanky was staring in disbelief. And he was just shaking his head. He was frozen. And he backed into the corner. McIntyre ended up going to swing the sword, but Shanky ended up retreating out of the ring. And so we had Shanky ended up joining Jinder and Veer on the stage. McIntyre ended up pointing the sword at all three of them as they looked on. So then we went backstage, and Kevin Patrick ended up stopping Jinder, Veer, and Shanky for some comments. So Jinder was ranting about McIntyre threatening their lives, and he ended up saying that karma will catch up with McIntyre. So Jinder, Veer, and Shanky end up running away backstage. McIntyre was still shown posing with the sword, and that was that. Overall, this match was a waste of time. So then we saw Nia Jax backstage with Shayna Baszler. Nia Jax ended up saying that if you thought what you just saw was something, wait until you see what she does to Rhea Ripley. So that was what Nia Jax had to say for that little thing backstage. So then we saw Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick ended up stopping Drew McIntyre backstage. Kevin Patrick ended up asking McIntyre about Jinder Mahal, Veer, and Shanky. McIntyre ended up saying that he didn't get to finish the job. So he ended up saying how bloody thirsty Chicago is, saying he might finish the job. So McIntyre ended up saying to Kevin Patrick that he's going to be keeping Jinder Mahal in fear each week, and that he loves it. McIntyre ended up saying that Jinder will get to pick between the hospital, the graveyard, or his sword, Angela. McIntyre ended up saying that Jinder has known him for over 10 years. Of course, because they were former members of 3MB, along with Heath Slater. So he ended up saying that he knows Jinder is not a threat. It's a promise. So that was what McIntyre had to say. But Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal, this whole feud is one of the most boring feuds currently on WWE television. I mean, who asked for this feud? And we're going to begin the match at SummerSlam. Watch, it's going to be Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. That will be your bathroom break match right there. I mean, Drew McIntyre, he was in the main event last year. He was the WWE champion. He goes from that to Jinder Mahal. How fucking awful is that? How fucking terrible. So then we had Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley. Nia Jax was shown waiting in the ring. Shayna Baszler was on the outside. And then out came Rhea Ripley. And this match was just meh, in my opinion. Match ended up starting. Nia Jax was talking some trash to Rhea Ripley. Nia Jax ended up taking Rhea Ripley into the corner. Rhea Ripley delivered 2 boots to Nia Jax. Rhea Ripley ended up delivering a strike to Nia Jax's face. Nia Jax got angered because of that. She ended up headbutting Rhea Ripley, and she ended up launching Rhea Ripley into the ring post. And we had Nia Jax end up bringing Rhea Ripley back to the ring because she ended up smashing Rhea Ripley's head into the ring post with her hip. So Rhea Ripley ended up going for the riptide, and Nia Jax ended up elbowing her. Rhea Ripley got sent into the corner, shoulder first, and Nia Jax went to the apron. She ended up trying to hit Rhea Ripley into the post again, but Nia Jax ended up hitting the ring post hard as Rhea Ripley ended up moving out of the way. Nia Jax ended up sending Rhea Ripley into the barricade by delivering a Samoan drop. And we had Nia Jax end up having Rhea Ripley on her shoulders in the middle of the ring. And she was stretching and bending Rhea Ripley. So Nia Jax was still standing. Rhea Ripley was using the ropes to land a big head scissors takedown. So Rhea Ripley ended up going to the top. She ended up nailing a missile drop kick to Nia Jax. She went for the cover, which Nia Jax ended up kicking out too. And we had a point where Nia Jax was bleeding on her face. She had a cut near her eye. Nia Jax ended up leveling Rhea Ripley and delivered the running leg drop to Rhea Ripley. She went for the cover. Rhea Ripley ended up kicking out too. And at this point, Nia Jax's face was all covered in blood. So at the end of the match, we had Shayna Baszler get up on the ring apron. She was yelling at Rhea Ripley. Nia Jax ended up charging, and Rhea Ripley ended up sidestepping to avoid Nia Jax. Rhea Ripley ended up coming back, rolled up Nia Jax for the pin. And there you go. Rhea Ripley ended up winning the match. Post-match, Rhea Ripley ended up retreating out to the floor. And Shayna Baszler was back in the ring. Nia Jax was yelling at her. She was not happy about Shayna distracting her. Shayna Baszler ended up going to leave, but her and Nia Jax kept on arguing. Shayna Baszler ended up storming out of the ring as Nia Jax ended up looking on. And Nia Jax turned around. Rhea Ripley was there, and she delivered a super kick to Nia Jax. Rhea Ripley then ended up slamming Nia Jax with the Riptide, and that was basically that. But hopefully this is the end of the pairing of Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler needs to go on her own. She needs to get away from Nia Jax. Hopefully this is the case. So, but overall, this was a meh match. Then we had a rematch from last week. Mansoor and Mustafa Ali versus Mace and T-Bar. Nothing was great that happened in this match that we didn't see last week. So, we had Mace and T-Bar end up coming out first, and then Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. This was, of course, Mustafa Ali in his hometown of Chicago. Match started off with Mace leveling Mustafa Ali. Mace then went to work on Mansoor. T-Bar ended up running around the ring, and he ended up delivering a clothesline to Mustafa Ali, which turned Mustafa Ali inside out at ringside. I thought it was a pretty nice sell from Mustafa Ali on the outside. T-Bar ended up coming back into the ring. He ran over Mansoor, and we went for the cover. Mansoor ended up kicking out at 2. Mansoor ended up catching T-Bar with a big kick. So Mustafa Ali ended up tagging in. He ended up knocking Mace off the apron. He dodged T-Bar in the corner, and he kicked T-Bar. Mustafa Ali delivered a neck breaker to T-Bar, and he ended up nailing a suicide dive. So at the end of the match, we had T-Bar end up yanking Mansoor off the turnbuckles because Mace ended up distracting him, and he ended up leveling Mansoor with a running big boot, and he went for the cover, and there you go. T-Bar and Mace ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Mustafa Ali was standing over Mansoor. Mace and T-Bar ended up coming in from behind. Mustafa Ali ended up pushing Mansoor out of the way, out to the floor, so he could take the double team from Mace and T-Bar. So Mustafa Ali ended up saving Mansoor. Mansoor ended up coming back in. He ended up checking on Mustafa Ali, and that was that. Overall, nothing great that happened in this match that we didn't see last week. Even though last week Mansoor and Mustafa Ali ended up picking up the win. Oh, and then we came to Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair ended up coming out as I heard the ratings dropping. She came out to a crowd of boos from the crowd. So Charlotte ended up getting into the ring. Charlotte ended up saying that a few days ago, she woke up to headlines on Simone Biles withdrawing from the Olympics. She ended up saying that she wondered why she would want to withdraw from something so big, then learned it was a health issue, and began to sympathize and relate with her. So the fans are chanting for Becky Lynch here. Of course, they don't care what Charlotte has to say. I don't care what she has to say, and probably all of you don't care what she has to say. So Charlotte ended up saying that Becky's not here, and that Charlotte sold out the Allstate Arena, not Becky. Really? Nobody paid to see you, Charlotte. The venue wasn't sold out because of you. Nobody paid their hard-earned money and tickets to come see you. So Charlotte ended up recalling how she defeated Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship at Money in the Bank, and the next night, NIKKI A.S.H cashed in the briefcase and won the title, blah, blah, blah. Bitching and complaining from Charlotte, saying, oh, she stole the title, Nikki stole the title. Charlotte ended up saying that when she woke up the next morning, she couldn't help but ask what the hell was going on, because she was near her breaking point and on the verge of her own nervous breakdown, because she is a 11-time champion, and that makes her the most decorated woman in the history of the company. Yeah, because WWE just gives Charlotte anything, because of course she's a Flair. So Charlotte ended up saying, speaking on behalf of everyone, cashing in Money in the Bank to win a championship is the most cowardly thing in this business. She ends up saying that it's not competition, it's theft. And she has now been cashed in not once. So Charlotte ended up going under the ring. She brought out a kendo stick. She was saying that she will beat Nikki with it. She ended up saying that she's been cashed in on 3 times now. So Charlotte ended up tossing a broom and a chair in the ring. So she ended up going on about how she's going to beat Nikki around and how the only way to win a title from her is to cash in. So Charlotte got back into the ring. She ended up saying last week she chose to show her superiority over Nikki. And when she beat Nikki, Nikki had the audacity to request a rematch. And she ended up saying that she can still beat her. She can still beat Charlotte. Charlotte ended up saying that she punched Nikki in the face, which makes Nikki gullible, not confident. So Charlotte ended up saying that the one thing fans love more than a champion is a martyr. And Nikki is both. She ended up saying tonight Nikki will sacrifice herself in a no-holds-barred match where there are no disqualifications and no hiding from her. No hiding from Charlotte. So Charlotte ended up saying that anything goes tonight. And Nikki, we saw Nikki end up appearing behind Charlotte. She ended up dropping Charlotte with a chair shot to Charlotte's back, which Charlotte didn't even sell the shot. Charlotte didn't even sell the chair shot. So fans were popping for Nikki, and Charlotte ended up looking on from ringside. And that was that. But awful segment with Charlotte. Just Charlotte bitching and complaining. She's probably pissed off, taking all her anger out on everyone and the company because her father Ric Flair ended up requesting for his release. So she's the only Flair in the company now. Awful segment. So then we saw Lily and Alexa Bliss. We saw how Lily and Alexa Bliss were taunting Eva Marie with the Lily-lution last week on Monday Night Raw. So Eva and Doudrop were backstage with Kevin Patrick. Boy, the show continues to get worse and worse. So Kevin Patrick ended up asking about Natalya suffering an injury last week, which I forgot to mention in last week's review. Natalya suffered an injury in that match. So Eva ended up saying, who cares? She ended up saying that we should be more concerned about the smear campaign by Alexa Bliss and her ugly little doll, Lily. So Eva Marie was poking fun at Doudrop before she came along. She goes on trashing Alexa Bliss and Lily. So Eva ended up saying that last week Natalya paid the price for getting in the way of the evolution. And tonight, Tamina will pay. More like the Borlution. Eva Marie, she should just go to catering. That's where she deserves. Why is she still employed by this company? Yet, WWE, they released Bray Wyatt, and yet, Eva Marie still has a job. Care to explain that? I don't understand. You let go of Bray Wyatt, but yet Eva Marie is still here. So then we had Tamina versus Doudrop. Boring match. So we had Doudrop and Eva Marie end up coming out first. Who fucking cares? Tamina ended up coming out, and she was holding both of the women's tag team titles. So Corey Graves on commentary, he ended up talking about Natalya being out with an injury. She had an ankle injury. And we saw, a video of how Doudrop ended up falling on Natalya's ankle last week. So Natalya ended up undergoing surgery. So that was what happened. So the match ended up starting. Tamina ended up locking up with Doudrop. and they end up locking up again. Doudrop end up applying a headlock to Tamina. Doudrop end up rocking Tamina, but Tamina end up taking Doudrop out with a shoulder. Tamina end up delivering a running clothesline in the corner, end up dropping Doudrop against the turnbuckles, and delivered a running hip splash in the corner. So Tamina ended up dragging Doudrop over, but Eva Marie ended up getting on the apron to distract Tamina. Tamina was yelling at Eva Marie as Eva Marie ended up going down on the apron. So Tamina ended up stalking Eva Marie, which allowed Doudrop to attack Tamina from behind. She ended up sending Tamina face first into the ring post. So at the end of the match, Tamina ended up getting the win because Eva Marie was telling Doudrop to hit the crossbody while Tamina was down. Doudrop ended up running for the crossbody while Tamina was down, and it backfired. Eva Marie's advice backfired on Doudrop. Tamina ended up coming right back up, delivered a Samoan drop to Doudrop. There you go. Tamina ended up winning the match. Post-match, Eva Marie ended up coming in to check on Doudrop, and she was yelling at her. And then we see Alexa Bliss was on the screen. Alexa Bliss was laughing, and Alexa Bliss had Lily with her. Alexa Bliss ended up saying that Eva is the loser of this match, because she was like, and the loser of this match, Eva Marie. So Alexa Bliss was laughing. Eva Marie was pissed off in the ring. She was yelling at Doudrop for losing the match. And that was that. But who cares? Who fucking cares? And then we saw Damian Priest. Damian Priest was backstage. Matt Riddle ended up riding up on a scooter to him. Matt Riddle had a new scooter because last week, Omos ended up breaking the scooter. So Damian Priest ended up asking if Matt Riddle is worried Omos will do the same thing this week and probably break his scooter again. So Matt Riddle ended up going on about having the power of Randy Orton running through his veins and having so many voices in his head that he can't keep track. So Matt Riddle ended up mentioning Damian Priest's feud with Sheamus. And of course, Damian Priest appearing on Miz TV. Damian Priest ended up saying that he has handled these clowns before. He handled Miz and Morrison before. And that he isn't worried about the Miz and Morrison. And Damian Priest ended up saying that he's threatening to put Morrison in a wheelchair alongside the Miz. So that was that. And then out came John Morrison and the Miz for Miz TV. Of course, they had the dipstick or the dripstick. They were shooting water out from the dripstick or the dipstick, whatever. And of course, he had them on commentary say, "Oh yeah, it's so moist. It's moist." I don't understand what their obsession is with moist. I guess Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard love being moist. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, The Miz ended up welcoming everyone to Miz TV. Miz ended up saying that he can't help his feelings of disdain for his guest, who has a long history with him and Morrison. So Miz ended up introducing the guest for Miz TV, which of course was Damian Priest. And we saw how, Damian Priest and Bad Bunny end up defeating the Miz and Morrison at WrestleMania. John Morrison ended up saying that he has words for Damian Priest as soon as he comes in the ring. So we had Priest end up coming into the ring. Miz and Morrison end up blaming Damian Priest for putting him in a wheelchair, for putting the Miz in the wheelchair. And he ended up saying that he's taking advantage of the injury. They end up calling Damian Priest a cheater for ripping Sheamus' mask off last week. And Damian Priest was like, "You guys are out of your minds." And of course, the crowd started chanting CM Punk because they didn't give a shit what was going on in this segment. Damian Priest ended up saying that Sheamus was cleared to compete last week. And he also ended up giving Sheamus props for wrestling him with an injury. And he ended up saying, which is more than he can say for The Miz. So Damian Priest started questioning the legitimacy of The Miz's injury and if The Miz will ever wrestle again. And Damian Priest was wondering, oh, Miz, is your leg definitely injured? Or is something between them? So The Miz ended up bringing up how he's never been injured until working with Damian Priest. He ended up saying that if he wasn't in the wheelchair, he would slap the taste out of Damian Priest's mouth. So Damian Priest ended up stepping up to The Miz, and he ends up daring The Miz to slap him. So Damian Priest ended up going on. Morrison ended up interrupting him, saying that he's disrespecting them. So Damian Priest was talking some trash, and Miz ended up threatening him, saying that John Morrison will make him regret ever saying anything bad about them. So Damian Priest was like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you guys? He ended up saying that he came out to challenge Sheamus, but they have pissed him off, and that he just wants to fight them. So of course we had Damian Priest end up knocking out John Morrison out of the ring. And we had Damian Priest was taunting Miz, and he was trying to wheel himself. Miz was trying to wheel himself away from Damian Priest. Damian Priest ended up squirting the Miz with the dripstick because the Miz was going to squirt Damian Priest, and Damian Priest ended up grabbing the stick. So Miz ended up trying to spray stick back at Damian Priest, but Damian Priest ended up soaking the Miz with the dripsticks. He ended up soaking him with the bucket of water that the sticks are kept in. Stupid shit. So that was that, but overall, just a meh segment. Like, who cared about this segment? Everybody was chanting for CM Punk during this segment. That's how you could tell how much the Chicago crowd gave a shit about this segment. Then we had Damian Priest versus John Morrison. Was this like the sixth match that they had? Damian Priest ended up winning. Damian Priest ended up hitting the choke slam to John Morrison. That was it. Post-match, Damian Priest ended up standing tall. Sheamus came into the ring and attacked Damian Priest. Sheamus, of course, was wearing the face mask. And Damian Priest and Sheamus end up fighting. And Ricochet end up coming into the ring. Ricochet end up attacking Sheamus. And Damian Priest end up taking out John Morrison. And where did this lead to? A tag team match. So Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. We had Sheamus and John Morrison versus Ricochet and Damian Priest. Match was okay. We had Ricochet end up attacking Sheamus to start off the match. Ricochet had some offense on Sheamus, and then he delivered a kick to knock John Morrison off the apron. Ricochet came back, delivered a springboard moonsault to Sheamus, went for the cover, which Sheamus kicked out at 2. Sheamus then ended up knocking Ricochet off the apron out to the floor. And we had The Miz and John Morrison end up wetting the floor with the stick, with the drip stick. Morrison ended up grabbing Ricochet, and he launched Ricochet across the floor that was wet, and Ricochet went headfirst into the ring steps. Morrison then brought Ricochet back into the ring, went for the cover. Ricochet kicked out at 2. Morrison and Sheamus end up double teaming on Ricochet. Sheamus ended up keeping Ricochet down, was taunting him, beating him down. Ricochet then unloaded on Sheamus with some elbows, and then Ricochet delivered a drop kick. So we had Ricochet and Morrison end up going at it, and we had Damian Priest end up coming in, started unloading on John Morrison. Priest ended up countering the move, and ended up dropping John Morrison with a backbreaker. Priest went for the cover. Morrison kicked out at 2. So Priest then delivered a choke slam to Morrison. Priest went for the cover, and Sheamus ended up breaking up the pin. Priest ended up fighting Sheamus off and kicked him out to the floor. Ricochet then ended up flying out to the floor and delivered a moonsault to take Sheamus down. So Damian Priest ended up dropping John Morrison with the Reckoning. So there you go. Ricochet and Damian Priest end up winning the match. So John Morrison ended up taking 2 losses tonight. So that was that. The Miz was throwing a fit at ringside post-match in his wheelchair. And that was that. But overall, it was an okay match. So then we had Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber was backstage with Bobby Lashley and MVP. MVP was shown still selling the spear from Goldberg earlier in the night. So Lashley ended up telling Sarah Schreiber that he hopes Goldberg brings his son to SummerSlam so that he can watch Bobby Lashley annihilate his father, annihilate Goldberg. So that was that. So match confirmed for SummerSlam. Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg. WWE Championship on the line. So there you go. And then we had Omos versus Matt Riddle. So before the match got on the way, Kevin Patrick was backstage with Omos. He was asking about, last week and tonight's match. Omos ended up saying that first it was Matt Riddle's scooter. Tonight it will be his spine. Omos ended up marching out to the ring by himself. No AJ Styles tonight. Styles wasn't there beside Omos tonight. But do I need to go over this match? Who you all thought won the match? If you said Matt Riddle, nope, sorry. So Omos ended up winning the match. Omos ended up lifting Matt Riddle, slammed him down to the mat. There you go. Omos ended up winning the match. Such a predictable match. So then we had Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss was backstage. She was talking with Lily. Doudrop then ended up attacking Alexa Bliss from behind. Started beating her down. Eva Marie ended up appearing. Eva Marie ended up insulting Alexa Bliss and Lily. And she ended up welcoming both Alexa Bliss and Lily to the Evolution. So Lily was just down on the ground. Lily then ends up standing up by herself like she's the Undertaker. And then we hear the laughs of Lily. And that was that. Just terrible. I mean, a doll rising up like the Undertaker. Like going like so comical. I actually end up laughing at that when I saw Lily end up popping up just like that. And then we got another rematch from last week. Karrion Kross versus Keith Lee. 50-50 booking here. It's like, we saw Karrion Kross defeat Keith Lee last week. Oh yeah, let's get it again. Let's see who could lose this match this week. It's like Vince McMahon just wants to bury one of these guys. Karrion Kross won the match last week. Who do you think won this week? If you said Keith Lee, ding ding ding, you're correct. Keith Lee ended up winning this match. Keith Lee ended up catching Karrion Kross in the Spirit Bomb. And there you go. Keith Lee ended up winning the match. So now Karrion Kross has 2 losses on the main roster. Shame. It's an absolute shame. And Karrion Kross has a match at TakeOver in 3 weeks against Samoa Joe. Karrion Kross, that's going to be another loss for him. Samoa Joe is going to beat Karrion Kross, and Samoa Joe is going to be the new NXT champion. Add another loss to Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross here on the main roster, he just feels like everyone else on the main roster. He's just a guy. He's just a guy on the main roster. He is just like every other guy on the main roster. It's a shame. They strip him of Scarlett. They strip him of, the lights that he had in NXT and the fog. They stripped him of that. He just feels plain when he comes out and makes his entrance. I don't know why you can't have Scarlett come with him. Like I said, he just feels like another guy on the main roster. So then we had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick was backstage with Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that the match with Nia Jax was brutal, but not as brutal as a no-holds-barred match, where everything is legal. She ended up saying that she will be watching, and that she hopes NIKKI A.S.H beats the hell out of Charlotte. But nothing that happens tonight will change the fact that she will win the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. So that was what Rhea Ripley had to say. Then we had the Jobber Ninja Turtle 24/7 title on the line. Reginald, or now they're calling him Reggie, versus Akira Tozawa. Who the fuck cares? Yeah, Bray Wyatt, fired from WWE. Yet, Reginald, still has a job here. Unbelievable. And now, WWE changing Reginald's name to Reggie. It sounds like a fast food restaurant. Hey, Dad, do you want to go to Reggie's tonight? Have a burger and fries? That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like with Reggie's name. Like a fast food chain or fast food restaurant. Who do you think won this match? If you said Reggie, ding ding ding, there you go. Reggie ended up winning the match. Who fucking cares? Who cares about the Jobber Ninja Turtle 24/7 title? This title should be fucking retired. So then we had NIKKI A.S.H. She was backstage with Kevin Patrick. NIKKI ended up saying that she's never been in a match this dangerous and doesn't know what to expect. She ended up saying that she has the confidence that she can beat Charlotte. And if she does, she can prove to the entire world that you can almost be a superhero if you believe in yourself. So that was what NIKKI had to say with this fucking horrible gimmick that she has. This horrible new gimmick. Main event, no holds bar match, NIKKI A.S.H versus Charlotte. This was a decent main event. So we had NIKKI A.S.H end up coming out first, and then Charlotte came out. We had Charlotte and NIKKI end up staring each other down. Charlotte ended up taunting NIKKI. So NIKKI ended up ducking a running boot from Charlotte to start off the match. NIKKI then ended up hitting the crossbody, ended up mounting Charlotte with some strikes. Charlotte then ended up dropping NIKKI with a shot to her gut. And then she ended up launching NIKKI into the corner. And Charlotte ended up dropping NIKKI and ended up taunting the crowd. She tossed NIKKI out to the floor, and she ended up ripping the top of the announce table. And Charlotte ended up tossing, monitors off the table. Fans were chanting, "We want tables." So Charlotte then ended up being NIKKI up at ringside. Charlotte went under the ring, pulled the table out, got a big pop from the crowd. Charlotte ended up leaning the table against the ring, and she ended up stopping to kick NIKKI. NIKKI ended up countering a slam, and she ended up shoving Charlotte face first into the ring post. And NIKKI ended up going to hit Charlotte again, but Charlotte ended up dropping NIKKI with a right hand. Charlotte ended up slapping NIKKI, and she was continuing to taunt her. We saw Rhea Ripley. She was watching backstage. So we had Nikki end up trying to fight back to Charlotte with some kicks as Charlotte was chopping Nikki back. Charlotte ended up dropping Nikki at ringside with a chop. And Charlotte delivered a overhead throw on the floor to Nikki. And we had Charlotte end up charging at Nikki at ringside. And she ended up tackling Nikki through the barricade. So Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, Charlotte was in control of the match in the ring. So there was a table that was shown leaning in the corner. Charlotte ended up taking Nikki to the top, delivered a superplex. And Nikki ended up sending Charlotte to the mat, but missed coming off the top. Charlotte ended up leveling Nikki with a big boot. Went for the cover, which Nikki ended up kicking out too. So there was a point in the match where Charlotte ended up going face first into the table in the corner. And we had, at the end of the match, Nikki ended up pinning Charlotte. And there you go. NIKKI A.S.H ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Nikki end up going into the crowd to celebrate. And on commentary, they ended up plugging the triple threat match at SummerSlam for the Raw Women's Championship. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Overall, it was a decent main event. But overall, this show was terrible. This show was absolutely boring. Boring, sleep-inducing 3 hours of terrible wrestling. So anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, the DVD VHS haul from the Salvation Army. So, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all Wednesday with the Dynamite review.